What would happen if the BC Sunshine Coast was struck by a tsunami? According to the National Weather Service, there are an average of 2 tsunamis each year that cause damage near their source. This means that unlike hurricanes, tornadoes or forest fires, tsunamis are a much rarer occurrence. This fact alone means the risk of a tsunami hitting the Sunshine Coast is very low. But what if the worst did come to happen and we were one of the 2 unlucky locations to be struck by a tsunami? A 2006 study by EmergeX Planning for the SCRD explains that because of our location, the run-up potential for our region is less than 2 meters. Run-up is the amount of seawater that could be pushed up above normal sea level during a tsunami. Maps of the SCRD website illustrate potential inundation areas along the Sunshine Coast. These examples theorise what would transpire should a 10-metre wave hit our shoreline. Gibsons would escape with relatively little damage. While the marina and infrastructure and property along Marine Drive would likely be devastated, most of the town wouldn't feel the direct consequences of a large 10-metre tsunami. The destruction in Roberts Creek and Wilson Creek would be more widespread. In Roberts Creek, 10 metres of water is shown to reach up as far as Highway 101. The pier, beaches, shops and restaurants would probably take heavy damage. Wilson Creek would be in the same boat. Because of its relatively flat elevation, water would reach past the highway and invade the shopping plaza, the car dealership and Canadian Tire. Damage to property and infrastructure could be immense. Further up the coast, Sechelt and Pender Harbour would appear to be the hardest hit by our hypothetical tsunami. Large swaths of central Sechelt would be decimated, and the northern part of the peninsula would likely be completely cut off from the rest of the province until the waters receded. As the EmergeX report points out, much of the district centre is flat and home to critical infrastructure. This is compounded by the limited sheltering of the local offshore islands. It's a similar story for Pender Harbour, where many parts of that community would find themselves underwater or cut off from the rest of the region. So, what should you do when you hear there's a tsunami warning for the Sunshine Coast? Ready.gov provides these safety tips. If you're on land, head towards high ground. That's as far inland as possible and stay there until officials tell you it's safe to return. If you're in the water during a tsunami and it's impossible for you to reach land, find anything that floats and just hold on tight.
We'll get him when he comes back in!
He's not coming back.
If you're in a boat, then face the direction of the waves and head out to sea. However, if you're in the harbour, head to shore instead.
We're gonna make it! We're gonna make it!
When the tsunami retreats, there will likely be flooding and damage to infrastructure and property. Do your best to avoid floodwaters, as they'll be full of debris and additional hazards could be hiding just under the surface. While a tsunami hitting the Sunshine Coast is exceedingly unlikely, it's always best to be prepared for an emergency. You should have an emergency kit at home, at work and in your car. You should also contact your insurance company and double check your coverage for things like an earthquake, flooding and yes, of course, a tsunami.